Okay, good morning, councillors. Welcome to the Strategy and Policy Committee meeting, SPC 25/5. Welcome everyone here, and please note the meeting is being live streamed and the consequences of that. I should start with the karakia. Whakatau, mai te wairua, whakawate, mai te hinanaro, whakarite, mai te tinana, ki ea, aina mahi. Ai. We have an apology from Councillor Murray Benge, although I know she may join us via Zoom later, but an apology for now. Can I have a move and second? Councillor Sol, Councillor Henry, all those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. There's no late items. Does anyone have a declaration of interest? No? Okay. There are no public excluded items and there's no public forum, but we'll know we've got some hearings to hear later. There's no presentation, so we'll move on to the first item. Actually, before we do that, I'll just mention that the hearings will be at 10:30. That's when our submitters will come in. So we'll aim to get through the first bit and then have a morning tea and then start the hearings at 10:30. Okay, so the first item from pages 7 to 14 is our submission on the Land Transport Management (time of use) charging amendment bill. Charlotte, so just to note, this has already gone off and they're just receiving this one.
Good morning, everyone. So just on that note, happy to take the report as read and answer any questions. Thank you.
Any questions? No, all pretty good. So I'm happy to move that we receive that as a seconder for that. Councillor Joyce, all those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Next up, we've got the submission on the Water Service Authority Wastewater Environment Standards from page 15 to 22. Again, a submission that's already gone in. Do we have any questions on this one for Ariel, who's just walked in? That's okay. Any questions anyway? No? Okay. Can I have a mover and second for these ones, please? Councillor Sol, Councillor Joyce. If there's no further debate, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Okay, so now we move to item 10.3 from on page 23, which is the update on the Te Puke spatial plan. And Ariel, I think this is you, so please take us through this one.
Apologies, it was a swift start to the morning. Kia ora. So the Te Puke spatial plan, I'll take the item as read and just happy to answer any questions, but also to go through anything that you have any questions over in terms of the process or the information that we have to date, including next steps.
Councillor Wickers.
Yeah, good morning. Yeah, just on the next steps, when is the intended workshop for that draft plan?
So we've got a workshop set down for the 10th of June. And that's where we'll be going through that issues and options paper that we've been working on, and that will set out some of the thoughts and ideas for the draft spatial plan itself. And then we've got another meeting set down towards the end of July, where we'll be looking to get an endorsement on the draft spatial plan from the subcommittee.
Councillor Joyce.
Obviously, it's the other end of the district from where I am, so I'm not keeping as close a tabs on this up till now. So my question is really around traffic. I mean, we know there's a huge traffic problem in Te Puke. Is that something that the spatial plan can help address or not really?
We're working on some options around that particular issue in terms of congestion through the town centre. There are some short-term solutions that have been proposed that we're doing some further investigation on. I think the answer is yes and no. There is one of the things that we have to keep reminding ourselves with the spatial plan is that it's not about just fixing the problems of today, it's about thinking about the future. And so one of the things we've talked to the subcommittee about is the fact that in 30 to 50 years time, what is going to be the main mode of transport? How are people going to move around Te Puke and through to other places? But also, you know, coming back to that vision for Te Puke, what do people want Te Puke to be like? Do they want it to be walkable? The town centre, how that operates in the context of that urban environment. So it's not just about the congestion of today. We have had some conversations in terms of rail transport, other passenger transport, other modes of transport. Should we have another bypass? Would the community want to spend $100 million on that type of thing based on the way the topography and also the land is where that particular bypass would go? So it's about thinking about where would the community like to spend their money.
Sure. The traffic problems go well beyond the centre of town, though, don't they?
Yes, they do, but you've got other solutions that are in the pipeline in terms of obviously the TEL. There's the toll on the TEL, which some people have cited as the reason for the congestion. There's other issues in terms of kiwi fruit harvest timing, things like that. But we also do have the other 2 interchanges coming onto the TEL, which are expected to provide some relief. But there is a general sort of topographical issue through Te Puke in terms of where would you put another road, for example.
Okay, I look forward to the workshop. Sorry, I look forward to the workshop.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Joyce. Councillor Henry next.
Yeah, I remember the day you started this, or the week or month or whatever it was, out with the big map. It was a very, very innovative way to engage the community and especially the young people. I thought it was a great idea. Are you able to give a spoiler alert? And I see that the Te Puke community have given a preferential location for the pool. Are you able to tell us that now or not? It's what it says in here.
We're working on that at the moment. So some work that has been done at officer level has 3 potential locations, which we've discussed with the subcommittee, and they are up for discussion as we move through that process. So that is Jubilee Park, Donovan Park, and the Domain, which is by the... Oh, yes, they all have some advantages and disadvantages. Yeah.
Ariel, can I just clarify? So consultations proposed for November, obviously that's the new council, but you say approval will then be sought for Strategy and Policy Committee to consult on the draft spatial plan. That will be done this term, is that correct?
Yes, it will be.
So in the next month or 2? Okay.
No, so the timeframes are intended that so the subcommittee, the purpose of the subcommittee is to really endorse that draft spatial plan up to the Strategy and Policy Committee. And the intention of that is really that subcommittee knows Te Puke and can provide some really strong guidance. So when we get to Strategy and Policy, it's a delegations issue in terms of the subcommittee can't make the decision for consultation, but the Strategy and Policy Committee can.
And just the right timing. So
Oh, sorry. Yes.
the timing of the Strategy and Policy,
21st of August.
21st of August. Okay, great. Councillor Daly.
Ariel, in terms of the traffic study, Cedric's told us that he's working on some options, and I was just wondering, is the budget that he's using, is that from the spatial plan budget or is it from transportation budget? And will his work be completed for the draft spatial plan?
I would have to check back in with Cedric on that. We have some other information that we've been using for traffic and transport options. So there's the Becker work that we had done, but I'll check back in with Cedric on that. But it's not coming from the spatial plan budget anyway, funding.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean that Cedric gave us an update at our last community board meeting. He said he's got $280,000 of budget to work on the study. So, I mean, that's, I just want to be sure that we've got all the information up to date for the spatial plan draft.
Yes, and that's a
sort
fair
of relying
point.
on another study down the track that's going to be different to what we go out with the spatial plan.
No, I'll talk to we've got a transport representative on the spatial plan working group, and I'll talk to them and make sure that's aligned. Thank you.
Okay, are there any further questions for Ariel or Emily? No, okay. So at this point, I'll call for a mover and seconder to receive that report, which is the update on the Te Puke spatial plan. Councillor Ray, and we have Councillor Wickers. Any debate? No. Okay, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. So with that, we'll have a adjourn for a long morning tea until 10:30, whereupon the Kaimo Reserve Management Plan review hearing will begin. Thank you very much. Okay, welcome back to the our strategy and policy meeting. And at this point, we're now going to have the Kaimai Reserve Management Plan review hearings. So each speaker will have 10 minutes, and that needs to include questions as well. We'll try and keep the time as best we can. And so first up, I have Mr. Barry Roberts. So if you'd like to come to the front, and Rebecca, maybe you can assist them, but if you press the right-hand button, when it goes red, you're live. There we are. You're all good.
All right, just a bit of background on myself. Yeah, I've been in Kaimai for 70 years, over 70 years. I was past chairman of Kaimai Hall Committee and the Social Committee, amongst other things. All right, so a bit of history on this Lower Kaimai Hall site that I think needs to be disposed of. The hall site was a residue from the Lower Kaimai domain. The domain was lost when the road deviation went through, so it severed the hall site and we ended up with a tiny little piece of ground. The other parts of the ground were used for compensation for the neighbour and that sort of thing. So the original Kaimai Hall site was also a metal dump for the road in those times. Kaimai Hall was shifted to Kaimai Hall was shifted to the school, as the Lower Kaimai Reserve was considered as a poor exchange for the domain that we'd lost. It was the only option for the community to get some ground around our hall. Considerable labour and material were supplied by the community to achieve the move. So the community lost its identity when we actually lost the domain. So that site's been sitting there, being grazed by the neighbour and that sort of thing. It's never ever going to be of any value to the community. Moving on to the Lower Kaimai Reserve. The Lower Kaimai Reserve was given in exchange for that part of the domain that was severed when the road went through. So again, as far as the community was concerned, it was certainly a poor exchange. At one stage, the council had a plan to create a picnic area along with toilets and a car park on the reserve, and that's the time that it was planted in trees. The toilets and car park didn't go ahead because the community, shall I say, got up in arms and said, why were we as council or community paying to maintain a picnic area on the side of the road when transit was pulling down all this and getting rid of them. So there needs to be a lot of work done on that Lower Kaimai Reserve site. There's a number of pieces of ground there that could possibly be used or probably be used for car parking and that sort of thing. There is access underneath the state highway, underneath the bridge, to actually get into the Lower Kaimai Reserve. So, as I've said, it could be used for car park and then access up the river to the Onga Onga Reserve. The Onga Onga Reserve is from what I read of the maps, is the biggest reserve in the Kaimai ward. This is virgin native bush, and to be honest with you, it is an absolute disgrace. The pests and the weeds and that are in that reserve need to be dealt with. It needs to be completely fenced. In my time, it used to have a lot of kiwis in there. There's no kiwis left there now. They've been gone for a long time. So the metal dump should be cleared of weeds and surplus metal that has built up over the years. Now, the practice by Transit and its contractors has been to dump metal there for road resealing and that type of thing. When the seal chip becomes contaminated, it just gets pushed into a heap. So there's a great big bund on the edge of the metal dump between that and the river. And it's growing up in weeds, convolvulus, and all these various types of things. And now, this morning, I noticed, it's probably been there, but I haven't been looking, a dirty great big woolly nightshade plant. Now, Kaimai is relatively free from woolly nightshade, but that tree there has now got seeds on it. So it's not going to be long before the birds start and cart it around into Kaimai. So there needs some access across the river to get the public into that Ongonga Reserve. And once we can get them in there and they can see what's going on in there, I'm quite sure that we will get support to get a trapping program and that type of thing going. But it's virgin native bush. It's the closest publicly owned piece of native bush to State Highway 29. And the number of people that drive past there, they probably don't even recognise that it's a scenic reserve. So I think that the metal dump should be shifted and we could get a car park in there at the metal dump. There's considerable amount of land around that area to accomplish that. It only needs a swing bridge across the river. She's a bit deep to wade across there. If that wasn't acceptable, then a walkway from the Lower Kaimai Reserve up along the river with a small bridge accessing underneath the Soldiers Road Bridge would actually get people into the park. Yeah, so really as far as Ongonga is concerned, we're only constrained by our lack of imagination or how much imagination we want to have. So that's basically it from me. I'll take questions.
Thank you, Mr. Roberts. I'll start with the first question. So you're suggesting selling the reserve to pay for an upgrade of the Onga Reserve. Is that correct?
Either the Ongonga Reserve or the Lower Kaimai Reserve. Council has got plans to have an esplanade walkway down the side of the Manga Karangarango. I think if we wait for that to actually happen, I'll put it this way, it won't be, it certainly won't be in my lifetime. So let's get on and get an access way up the river to Ongonga.
This one might be a question for staff later on, but the reserve you propose selling, is that suitable for a house site? Because if it's only suitable for a paddock, obviously it's not going to raise much money. Is it suitable for a house site, for example?
From memory, going a long way back, I think there was a title there. There were 3 pieces of ground that incorporated that Lower Kaimai Reserve, but yeah.
Okay. I've got a question from Councillor Thwaites first.
Morning, Barry. You said imagination is the only thing holding us back, but also turning right into that metal area now could be some traffic safety issues, though, would there be, if you're turning right across the end of that passing lane? Or
well, at the moment, we've got trucks and trailers turning across there anyway to dump metal. So, listen, yes, it's always a risk when you drive on State Highway 29. But the other option, of course, as I said, is to turn into Ngāwahine Road, put a car park in there, access under the bridge to the Lower Kaimai Reserve, and a walkway up the side of the river and put your bridge underneath the State Highway Bridge.
Deputy Mayor Scrimgeour.
Yeah, thank you, Barry. I think you may have answered perhaps my question, but when I was reading your submission last night, you were quite scathing in regard to the Onga Reserve, and my thoughts were, well, what would your recommended priorities be in terms of that? So did I hear you correctly this morning in that you were saying the number one thing is to gain decent access to the reserve for a start, and that there would be probably community groups or people that would be keen to be involved in a lot of the actual restoration work?
Yeah, that's correct. We've got to get the public in, excuse me, we've got to get the public in there so that they can see what's not being done.
Yeah, so the access is the number one thing in your mind.
Yeah, It
Okay.
is, and I do think you need to correct the, was it page 11 of the plan that actually said that there's walking tracks in the reserve, because there ain't no walking tracks in there.
Thank you very much. I can't see any other further questions. So with that, thank you very much, Mr. Roberts, and thank you for your submission and your time with us today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, I have Mr. David Whitehead from Mokoro Men's Shed. So if you'd like to come up, please. Welcome, in your own time.
Good morning. My name is Dr. David Whitehead, and my role at the Omakaroa Men's Shed is co-welfare officer, head gardener, and member of the committee, whom I represent today. I've been voluntold. I'm here along with a supportive, good-looking group of highly skilled colleagues to my right, to speak to the Omakaroa Men's Shed submission on the Kaimai Ward Reserves Management Plan. I will be succinct and hopefully memorable. My plan is to first make a couple of acknowledgements and second to outline just 5 points in respect to the submission paper. My first acknowledgement is to the generosity of council in allowing us to use the land at Omakaroa since our inception in 2021. Thank you. We look forward to working with council to achieve site security in the coming years. We're off to a great start. Given the indicative timeline provided by the council, this includes 2 years heads up lead-in time prior to vacating the site. That alone is greatly appreciated. My second acknowledgement is to many members of the Men's Shed for their input into this submission, including Alan Hughes for drafting a preliminary submission. I'd also like to thank committee members for a review of the submission. And I realise that you have sacrificed your morning tea this morning, possibly with cake, to join us. Council are more than welcome to join us at 10 o'clock for morning tea, Tuesdays, Thursdays and Saturdays. That's bribery. I move on to 5 points in respect to the submission, and to quote Benjamin Franklin, in this world, nothing can be said to be certain except death and taxes. In my career, I've seen many deaths and I've paid a fair amount of tax. Both of these certainties are examples of change. And council is not only a key stakeholder, but it is also an agent of change. Likewise, the Men's Shed is facing the consequences of change, and with it, huge associated challenges. So, council members, my first point is that the Men's Shed faces major challenges into site security. This submission seeks to initiate a conversation that addresses those insecurities. To be specific, we would welcome an initiative by council to signal via the Kaimai Ward Reserves Management Plan our request to consult on an appropriate site for the continuation of our activities. In turn, we signal our willingness to work with council to facilitate this initiative. Together, I believe we can achieve this goal. My second point is that the Omakaroa Men's Shed is a proven asset to the community. It could be argued that the community and the council's, it is to the community's and council's advantage to protect that asset. An example of the many projects that is an asset to the community is the completion of the Cooney Bird Reserve Observatory, a project that involved most of the members of the Men's Shed. An associated project in process is the construction of a very impressive 8-metre wingspan Godwit Goaka sculpture. The completion of these projects will be followed by, when working drawings and consents are received, to construct a smaller bird observatory. Currently, approximately 50 people visit the bird observatory each week. These community assets are a major part of the art trail, which attracts people and revenue to the district. Numerous other activities involving the Men's Shed are listed in my submission. These include support for our local hapu and providing services to schools. My third point looks to the future and is based on population profile statistics from the 2022 census. Based on this data and the current membership profile of the Men's Shed, it is predicted that membership will increase substantially in the coming years. There is currently a proven community need for our facility, and our projections indicate that that will grow. For as long as is feasible in our present location, our mission is to provide a place for working with wood, metal, other media, gardening, but all wrapped in a context that supports camaraderie and mental health. The role of the Omakaroa Men's Shed in enhancing social, intellectual, and emotional mental health of men in the district cannot be overstated. My fourth of 5 points, and the underlying purpose of this submission, is this. Going forward, we envisage a multi-use premises potentially available to other community groups. These may include the supply of produce to the community church food bank, which we do every Wednesday, storage for community patrol team, the community pest control groups for their poisons and traps, many of which we assemble in the shed, and many others. We have a proven track record in this community, and we seek to continue this role. My final point relates to the inevitability of us vacating the Parole Road site. There is no doubt that moving site sometime in the future will be a huge challenge, financially, logistically, emotionally. The movement of heavy machinery to shipping containers, transportable buildings, paint, garden tools, infrastructure. It's going to disrupt our work schedules. It will be epic and expensive. In this respect, we would welcome the ongoing support of Council. To continue providing our role in the community, we need an appropriate site. Our preference would be a site well away from residential areas. We can be noisy, especially the engineering group, and preferably away from industrial areas. If you know our site, you will currently know that we have a bucolic setting. We also need a building big enough for plant and machinery and our expanding membership, as signalled. It sounds like we're asking for a lot, but we also give a lot to the community. The Omakaroa Men's Shed submission signals a request that our needs be recorded on the Kaimai Ward Reserves Management Plan. On behalf of the Omakaroa Men's Shed, we thank the Council for their ongoing support and for the opportunity to talk to this submission. I'm happy to answer questions, and if I can't, I'll hand over to one of the committee members.
Thank you, Dr. Whitehead. And I would like to first up thank you and the Men's Shed and the Omakaroa for all the community work that you do. It's much appreciated. One question I have before I go to Councillor Coxhead. the locations you're looking for, does it have to be on the Omokura Peninsula or wider, looking wider? Is that as a possibility for you? Just
I think our preference would be for the peninsula. But there are areas out towards State Highway 29 that could be suitable.
right. Okay, thank you. Councillor Coxon.
Thank you for that very eloquent presentation. It was wonderful. I'm a big admirer of the work you do and what you contribute to the community as well, having myself been a beneficiary in part and purchasing items at other times. So do you have a particular, do you have anything in mind or a location in mind currently?
No.
No, okay, I thought you might have, okay. Right. The other question I did have was, so you're open 3 days a week?
Yes, indeed. Yes. Tuesdays, Thursdays and Saturday mornings from about 9 till 1.
So I was wondering if, you know, like you got the right location, perhaps a larger building, is it possible to have it open more often or other days to cater for that population and membership growth that you talked about?
I think that's a fine idea and one that I'm happy to take to the committee to seriously consider.
Councillor Joyce.
Thanks for that. Thanks to yourself and the first submitter too. Two very eloquent submissions. You've set a very high standard for the people that follow. I'd really just wondering how much, have you any idea how much space you need? I mean, have you thought about what is your actual requirement?
Difficult. Have we got a 1,000 figure? Yes.
I think the bench at the we use more of it.
So is that building 600 squares or is that site 600 squares? Because building 600 squares is huge.
We currently have 3 rather large buildings,
Right.
one exclusively for woodwork, one more for crafting things, putting things together. We have an engineering area, and at the present stage, we have 170 square metres of garden.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, I think we've reached the end of the questions. So thank you very much again, Dr. Whitehead. And yeah, thank you for your submission. Next up, I have Julie Shepherd for Piraco. So Julie. Oh, shit. I would just say, so I overlooked Rosalie Orr, so you'll be up next. So sorry for that misunderstanding. But Julie, if in your own time, if you can take us there. Yeah. There we are. Thank you.
I won't reintroduce myself. I know you can all hear me. I had drafted an oral submission. I've also provided a supplementary paper in preparation of the oral submission, which I believe has been circulated as well as our submission being taken as read. I had prepared my script speech, which is not in my bag right now, so I'm going to wing it. First of all, I would like to acknowledge Western Bay Planning District Council elected members and staff. We have a very long shared history involving reserves. I think we are really only just getting started and there's much more work to do. I want to acknowledge particularly Peter Watson for his ongoing support. And without him, we actually wouldn't have much success. So thank you, Peter. Pirirako, I'm not sure if you're all aware that Pirirako has recently settled down our treaty settlement as part of Ngā Hapu or Ngāti Ranginui. That is significant in itself because it is hapu centric, and it speaks particularly for the hapu. So in having that acknowledgement of the harm and the history of that harm created by the Crown, we now are at a place in time where we want to have some reconciliation and processes to move forward. In the written part of the oral submission, I raised particularly the resourcing of the work that's required of the cultural significant sites under reserves. And we all know that there's a history of that, particularly involving the independent hearing panel recommendations of Plan Change 92 in Omokoroa, and financial contributions and targeting a portion of those WHINCOs for historic cultural heritage moving forward. We need to, because we have, Pirirako have been working, I've personally been involved in cultural reserves and their significance for 17 years now, and we still are sowing the seeds. You know, we planted the little seeds and they're little seedlings, and now we want them to blossom and fruit. So I really am here just to raise that we have more work to do. We know that we have Western Bay's support to achieve all of these outcomes that are written in the submissions and in the second part. And I just wanted to be here to thank Western Bay, to acknowledge the work that is coming, the work that we need to commit to, the budgets that are required, because we have done incredible amounts of work in voluntary spaces as well as paid spaces to bring this to this time and space. So if you have any questions regarding the submissions, I'm more than happy to answer those.
Great. Well, thank you, Julie. And I do want to thank you for a really detailed submission that explains a lot of things, particularly around, for example, the naming. And it's really helpful to have that deeper understanding for our consideration in due course. But are there any questions for Julie? Councillor Henry.
Kia ora, Julie. Thanks for coming in again. Always nice to see you. My question is probably more for the staff, and you have had a very good working, I entered council and had seen that you had a very good working relationship with the staff, and in particular Peter, so nice that you acknowledged his work. And some lovely, whilst there's no building or anything there, you've got some lovely places on the reserve down the end there. That's very lovely. That was one of the first places I went to. So the question I've got is around the FinCo's reserve that you've mentioned in your key requests, that are they typically, the FinCo's that are related to that area, is there a portion of those FinCo's that's already allocated to deliver on cultural mitigation agreements? Or is that something?
I think they were recommended through the Plan Change 92. But I don't think they exist at the moment. I don't know if there's anyone in this room who can comment more fully on that, but that's my understanding of where this has come from. Perhaps.
Is that right?
Yeah.
So that's been happening.
I'm going to ask Rachel to
Oh yeah, okay.
To provide some clarity on this one.
So, Mayor James, you're correct that there's no specific financial contribution that's ring-fenced or targeted for cultural heritage restoration, for example, but we do have a financial contribution for reserves, and we have a small set fee financial contribution that we take for it's an ecological impact fee. So within that, and noting the recommendation by the independent hearings commissioners on Plan Change 92, that is potentially something that council could explore further.
Thank you. Councillor Granger.
Thank you, Your Worship. Hi, morning, Julie. In your, I just want to ask a question if you got an answer to the question you made in your email that covered the initial thing when you asked establishing a memorial wall in Omokoroa. I want to understand what this involves. Did you get an answer to that?
Not yet, but my assumption is at the heart of Pirirako, we too would want a memorial wall to recognise all of our ancestors, but this part was specifically for Omokoroa. So, and most likely to recognise settler individuals.
No, the intent of the memorial wall that people have asked for is for current people who die because the nearest cemetery is Katikati. So a little plaque, just so there's somewhere they can go. So it's about current people dying, not settlers or historical stuff.
Sorry,
So
could you pose that question to me again?
my question was, did you get an answer to your query? You say in your thing, establishing a memorial wall in Omokoroa, I want to understand what this involves. And I just wondered if anybody had come back to you and explained what it involved.
So there might be a typo on that part regarding the memorial walls that Western Bay have proposed to establish at Omokoroa. So memorial halls, we have them, but I didn't make any point on I didn't make any submission points on memorial halls.
No, walls.
Yeah.
Walls. I agree, you said, if this is to be a celebration of settlers, well, it's not. It's a memorial to people who live there now and die, and they want a little plaque to remembering.
So to be clear, I don't have any. Pirirako doesn't have any issue with recognition of any of our settler community members that are associated with the history of Omokoroa. We acknowledge them for the point that I'm raising in regards to that is that Pirirako would want to ensure that a memorial wall would reflect the beginning or the origin of the history as we know it for Omokoroa to segue into that wider, whoever they are.
Yeah, thank you. I think we're talking slightly cross purposes. I'm going to just take it offline and maybe Peter or someone can discuss that. So everyone's on the same page. Thank you. Are there any further questions for Julie on her submission? No? Okay. Well, thank you very much. And thank you again for such a detailed and informative submission. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you for your support, Western Bay.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you. Okay, next up, it's Ms. Rosalie Orr from the Te Puna Quarry Park.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor and councillors. Thank you very much for the opportunity to present to you today. My name is Rosalie Orr. I am an officer currently of the Te Puna Quarry Park Society Incorporated and on the committee. I'm also an active member of the trapping team. So it might seem like a contradiction in terms. The Quarry Reserve was an operating quarry from 1911 to 1979. That's a long period of time. Following the closure of the quarry, the site was abandoned and became overgrown with undesirable weeds and pest animals, including gorse, wattles, possums, and goats en masse. 10 years later, the council planted some pine and gum trees on the upper terrace of the land with the intent of eventually harvesting them. In 1996, the Te Puna Quarry Park Society Incorporated was formed and a management agreement with council was made at that time. What you see today on that very same ground is an impressive example of what vision, partnership, community generosity, and the efforts of an army of volunteers over the last 28 years can achieve. To talk to the points that I've made in the submission, the first point was adding the reserve to the draft management plan. Just to clarify, the land has been a reserve for a very long time. In the 2016 review of the Kaimai Reserve Management Plan, it was acknowledged but remained outside the plan. The Society is pleased to see recognition of the park as an asset worth preserving and enhancing. It is appropriate that it be included within the Kaimai Reserve Management Plan in the future. To the second point, working with tangata whenua, it is my understanding that discussions were had with Piriraka following Julie's submission to acknowledge that they are the local hapu of the Ngāti Ranganui iwi. The Society has extended an open invitation to the hapu to attend any meetings of the Society, which are held every month. The Society welcomes all volunteers to participate in the development of the park and is happy to work with tangata whenua to give recognition of the cultural significance and heritage of the land. The second or third point, in accordance with district-wide naming policies, etc., this is where we do not support renaming the park. The Te Puna Quarry Park Society doesn't support the renaming, essentially because the brand name of the Te Puna Quarry Park is a destination well recognised regionally, nationally and internationally. The website, Google search, maps, Facebook page, newsletters and promotional pamphlets have been invested in by the Society over many years. We have also recently developed a new constitution and re-registered the Society as Te Puna Quarry Park Incorporated Society. The park reflects the unique level of development as a special place that many of the community have a close connection to, as it has evolved over the years. The community increasingly use the facilities for events, education, cultural arts, and much more. It is a beautiful, interesting, green, pest-free environment with extensive gardens and many art sculptures. Nature and humans and their dogs coexist in harmony. A reserve has multiple meanings. The Te Puna Quarry Park meets the very definition of a park. It is a large public garden or area of land used for recreation. The next point, to investigate opportunities for using paper roads and other linkages to the park and the wider area. The Society supports potential connections for active modes such as walking and cycling to the wider local area. The park covers difficult terrain, therefore maintaining safe and secure access is a priority. The pine and gum trees are now mature and are potentially dangerous. There is certainly scope to expand areas of access further in the reserve, and it's worth exploring, so we support that. The next point, working with the Te Puna Quarry Park Society volunteers for improved ongoing general maintenance. I have to acknowledge Council's greater participation in working with the Society in the last 5 years since the renewal of the management agreement. It is a pleasure to be able to discuss matters and work collaboratively to the betterment of the park. The Society has secured substantial funding and invested in developing the park. We recently identified at least 45 different tasks that volunteers undertake to maintain the park. Some of the tasks require physical work beyond the capability and available volunteers. Just on that point, we probably have a few over 100 members at the moment on the Society, of which we have probably 30 to 50 active and regular volunteers. It is a dwindling source and an aging group, and that is a struggle that many of us have. The work is physical in many instances. We do use contractors periodically. Track maintenance is an example of where we would like to see a higher standard to improve the amenity. The Society is pleased to work with council officers as per the management agreement, which is reviewable at 5-yearly intervals. Next point, to work with the Quarry Park to explore future long-term governance and management approaches. The Society is open to consideration of future long-term governance and management approaches. The ongoing ability to harness the goodwill of volunteers will be an important consideration. For the last point, to develop a concept plan for the park, including track upgrades and potential seal extension to the amphitheatre, for example. The initial concept plan was quite detailed way back 28 years ago. And essentially what was envisaged at that point has been achieved and exceeded. The Society welcomes the opportunity to reimagine the potential of the park. This unique community asset is worth investing in, and working together, we can create a truly special park for all to enjoy. Thank you. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Orr. Are there any questions for Councillor Henry?
Thank you for your report. I see you talked about the pine trees, and you've also mentioned here, and I think it's a really good idea, that the walkways coming down from up the Mindens would really assist with people. There's a lot of people living up there to come through that way rather than driving down and parking. So is that where the pine trees are, where you're planning to, the new entrances from up there?
We don't have any particular plans for that at this point.
It's just an idea.
However, that's where the concept plan would actually work with council officers and others
with Peter
to envisage how that might work. It is steep terrain, and things like just safety, security, also potentially using swing bridges between gullies, things like that, all possibilities into the future.
That's good. You also mentioned one thing that you did not support, and that was, and I heard your explanation, the naming. Are you amenable to a dual naming of park?
I don't think we would need to work with people. We would be open to receiving discussions and having discussions on such things. But it's about the brand name of Te Puna Quarry Park is well established, and that is the thing that we think is where it's the same as the Falls Park.
I understand what you're saying. Totally. Thank you.
That's the main focus.
Can I just clarify with the naming issues between reserve and park? And I noticed in the consultation it was classified as a new reserve. So perhaps, or maybe Peter might be able to answer this better than I can, or you can. But so currently it's not a reserve. Is it just fee simple? Is that the issue there?
Technically, it is a reserve. It has been a reserve since longer than even I can remember, way back in the early 1900s, for example. So in a technical aspect, it is a reserve. So nothing's changed in that regard.
Okay, I'm sure there'll be some follow-up for our staff to understand exactly what's been going on there. Councillor Joyce.
A couple of things. One is, you may have noticed that Margaret's not here this morning. She is feeling very poorly and is unwell, which is why, I know she's a very keen, kind councillor and would normally be here. Another submitter talks about resource consent costs affecting the park. Has that been an issue for the Park Society?
I think that is, I haven't had direct exposure to that, but it's my understanding when we have wanted to erect the odd sculpture, sometimes it's required resource consent, or to build an information centre, for example, or some of the shelters, or we've had to go and pay lots of money for consenting and that sort of thing. So I think it's just an ongoing conversation as part of the management agreement and messaging back through to the different factions within council.
Wouldn't call them factions, but yes, I know what you mean. No, it could be an interesting phrase. Okay, well, if staff could pick that up, that'd be good.
Okay, thank you. I think that's the end of the questions I've got. I did want to thank you again for all the amazing work you do in Te Puna Koi Park. It is a really attractive place and a lovely place to wander around and visit. So thank you very much for that, and thank you for your submission. Thank you. All right, next up, I have Dr. Bruce McCabe from Amokora Residents and Ratepayers Association.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I shall restrict my comments to the Amokora Domain and Reserve and the Precious Family Reserve. If I ask you to turn to page 3 of my submission, it's a plan of the Amokora Domain. Now, to all people that live in Amokora, the major issue with this reserve area is parking. It's acute, it's chronic, and by the year it's getting progressively worse as more people live in Amokora, and it's made particularly bad with the number of people who commute to Matakana Island and leave their cars parked in the prime parking area around the playground and along the Esplanade Reserve. Now, I've got some suggestions that you may or may not want to adopt to help improve the parking situation. But first of all, that overflow parking area that you've got off Harbourview Road is not really obvious, and it's not working because people tend to go to where they want to go, to the beach or the boat club or the playground. And it's only the sign indicating where it is about this big. It's right next to a sign that's this big, showing you where the toilets are, really important. And it's got 2 road signs. So when you're driving along there, you're looking for kids, cars, people moving about. You just do not see that sign pointing you in another direction. But given that people all go to that boat trailer parking area or along the reserve, I'm suggesting that you open up some more parking in the domain. Now, I was shown a red line where a one-way road could be constructed, and you can actually make a one-way road with the technology we have now, with parking to the north of it. And we're looking at an area where you've got a sewage pumping station, somewhere where people drop their sewage out of their mobile homes. The back of the shops, it would be a very good place to put angle parking along there. And also the parking area that's indicated by 16 on the reserve management plan hasn't been constructed, and it needs to be constructed. And also that parking area could be extended all the way through to just about the entrance to the reserve. And that would open up considerably more parking close to where people want to be. And I would suggest that lighting could be considered so that, and people working over in Matakana or visiting Matakana for tangi or whatever could be encouraged to park in this area, both actively and also by putting lighting in there so that they feel confident to park their vehicles there. I think one of the major issues for them is vandalism if it's parked away from the lit area where most people are. There are a few minor points that I raised. You've by creating a mound in the children's playground, you've upset the drainage from the reserve. the catch pit is actually too high to take water off the reserve. So, that's a minor thing. Probably far more major is that part of that new $1 million plus playground is rusting. And I had a look at it yesterday, and you've got powder coating over raw steel. Now, everyone knows in the coastal hazard area, you don't use raw steel painted because it'll rust very quickly. You actually have to use, in a house, for instance, you have to use galvanized nails, stainless steel nails, stainless steel bolts. You can't even get away with galvanized. So either someone hasn't spec'd that structure properly, or it hasn't been constructed properly. And that needs to be looked into, because you've got a costly ongoing maintenance problem for that destination playground. Now, I'll move on to Precious Family Reserve. Now, it's not entirely clear what the intended use of this reserve is. Councillor Granger has raised the possibility of a swimming beach, which I don't think is a starter, because there are only short tidal windows where people can actually swim. The coastal area has been identified as a picnic area, which I think would work very well. But what you have in your plan is the construction of a footpath through what is a really nice picnicking area, which would be counterproductive to that use as a picnic area. You seem to be wanting to create a car park down there by opening up the gate of Anderley Avenue so that people can drive in there. Now, if you want this as a passive recreation reserve, there's no need for a car park there. People can park on the roadside, outside of the park, and then the park can be planted up and create a really pleasant natural environment that people can walk through, cycle through, and just generally enjoy themselves. So I think the key thing is identify what you want this reserve to be. Don't put a toilet in the middle of one area, so it's going to be the showpiece of the reserve. In fact, most people that were approached who were walking through that reserve, and that's subject to an earlier submission, I won't reiterate that, didn't see the need for a toilet there. But I'd also like to throw in another suggestion, and we look towards Rotorua and their public gardens. They're a lovely show, but they were initially constructed as croquet lawns. And I think there are 6 operating croquet lawns there now, and another 4 or 5 that are no longer used because people have gone away from that sport. But I think on that higher area, at the southern end of that reserve, where it's earmarked as stormwater management, it's too high for stormwater management. The wetland is down lower. Consider leaving it available for 2 croquet lawns. It would fit well with the golf club in the background. And in fact, it would be a very good relationship for a local club to be able to work in with the golf club, because essentially croquet lawns are putting lawns, but to a higher spec, same mowing, same attention is required. So that would be a good cross use of the land. And you consider towns like the Mount, Tauranga, Katikati, Waihi, Rotorua. They've all got croquet lawns. They've got very strong croquet clubs because of the older generation that are there. But in Canada, croquet is actually part of their school sport curriculum. And it's ideal for people who don't like contact sports, but want something sociable and challenging to take part in. So I'll open it up to questions.
Thank you, Dr. Bruce. I got two questions for you. On the parking suggestion for the domain, how have you had feedback, or have you socialised it that that's a an idea that would be acceptable? Because I can imagine, although people definitely want more parking there, I've heard that loud and clear, but at the same time, people might not be so keen on having car parks encroaching on the green space. So have you socialised that with your group yet?
No, I haven't, but I've looked at it from the perspective of, would that roadway through and car parking intrude upon the use of that reserve? And from my experience, no one spends any time where that sewage pumping station is and where the dump station is. You're looking at ground at the back of the shops where there used to be a swing, but there is no longer a swing. And you've concentrated the play area quite rightly, and it would contribute, I think, to the use of the park in general.
Yep, thank you. And my second question is around your suggestion of croquet lawns. Normally with new sporting facilities, there has to be a sort of upwelling of community desire for that, or a croquet club that's looking for a location rather than a council-driven, let's build a croquet lawn and hope people come. So do you know of any group that wants to create croquet lawns specifically?
Oh, well, I'm a croquet player myself. I'd have to admit to that. But the people who live in Aotearoa play croquet at Katikati or at the Mount or at Tauranga. So there's a lot of driving involved. I agree with you. Something like that shouldn't happen unless there's strong community support for it. And it's the sort of cost that the council wouldn't or couldn't afford anyway. It would be up to a club to get funding and do the works. But I'm just saying, don't sterilise that ground by putting a toilet right on that flat area, and leave it as an open space until such time as a suggestion like that does come through.
Okay, thank you. Next up, I have Councillor Coxhead got a question, and then Councillor Henry.
Thank you, Bruce, for your presentation. Just about the croquet lawns as well, has that been something that's been suggested or socialised with the local residents just sitting on the precious reserve as well?
No, it's an idea that I thought I should throw into the mix at this stage, given that you're considering the future planning of that reserve. And I'm just saying, well, that's a suggestion. And it's in the, as it's identified as for stormwater treatment, is not really suitable for that because it's too high.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Henry.
I've got a service request here. You mentioned something at the beginning there about something you'd noticed. Oh, that's right, the rusting of the playground. Have you entered a service request for that?
No. Councillor Joyce mentioned that, I've heard it's been starting to rust. So I said, I'll go down and have a look and let you know at the meeting. So I took a couple of photographs.
And that does help if you do put the service request in, because it highlights it within the system, which is a bit quicker, well, hopefully a bit quicker than bringing it to the council to.
Yeah.
But they do work.
Okay.
Anyway,
I think you've got a question rather than service request.
Around the car park, and I do car parking down by the little boardwalk, and it is absolutely lovely on the high tide seeing the young kids down there. And I do agree with you that actually setting the parking that's proposed there back a little bit from that would allow walking and activities to happen on there. There's certainly at that end of the park, there's probably enough room to change it over, to move it back, the parking back a little bit. Would you agree?
I think we're talking about the same thing.
Yes, you mentioned 15, around the 15, 13 and 16 marks on the map.
Oh, right.
Well, that parking is what you're talking about, wasn't it?
Okay, no, well, I was talking about 2 blocks of parking. 15,
that's 15, the one I'm referring to.
Yeah, 15 is already there. 16 was planned. It's absolutely needed.
Oh, yes, I'm not saying.
And it should be built, but it should also be extended further along than just the area that it's shown. And if you open up an access near the number 9, then the mowing contractors can get in through the car park. And they don't have to have other access to that area.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I would, on a busy day, the signage is not clear down there. and having-
Councillor Henry, this is about questions and we're running a bit behind, so can we keep it short, please?
Thank you for your submission, and they are always very welcome and very interesting to read. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, well, two more questions. One from Councillor Granger and then from Councillor Joyce. But Councillor Granger, you go ahead.
Yeah, quickly. Were you involved in the original concept? Were you around when the original concept plan for the domain was done?
No, that predates me living here.
No, well, I just want to point out that the idea of the road was floated at that stage. It didn't make the cut, but it's not a new idea. It's a brilliant idea, and I totally agree with it, but it didn't make the cut back then either.
I'm not sure what you're referring to as a brilliant idea.
The road. The road.
He's agreeing with you.
Oh, okay.
Your red line.
Okay, Councillor Joyce.
Just we had an email this morning talking about a review of a Mokoroa domain down by the boat ramp. Just wanted to check that that was okay. Well, make public, I guess. But just to let you know that's coming up. So the parking is actually, I think Peter's team is working on that now, aren't you, Peter? Just going by the email sent around this morning to the councillors. So there is actually a parking review coming up, right? Well, it might be slightly broader than that, but it includes parking.
Is that taking part of the reserve management plan review?
Peter, would you like to comment on this? So we've got the.
What's being referred to as an outcome of the 2018 concept plan review, and it's the reviewing all of the primary focus on the boat ramp area and extending the jetty stuff, because that was identified in the concept plan, but the funding was always pushed out a little bit, and it's occurring next year. So we're just planning ahead for that. So that was a heads up to elected members of that coming out. We'll be engaging, I'm seeking community feedback on that, and yeah, any comments on car parking, because that's a land-based activity associated with the marine-based activity. So we'll be looking at that as part of that process.
Right. Thank you. Okay, I think we better move on there. So thank you very much, Dr. McCabe, and appreciate your time and your submission. Thank you. So next up, we have Debbie Marshall, if you'd like to come up, please. Yeah, it's the right hand button on the mic. Yeah, thank you. Perfect.
Okay, cool. So do I just start?
Please do, in your own time.
Hi, my name is Debbie Marshall, and I've been a resident of the Kaimai community for nearly 6 decades. Over my adult years, I've been actively involved in the community and currently serve as the Secretary of the Kaimai Hall Committee, Treasurer of the Kaimai Omanua Rural Ratepayers Committee, and a member of the Kaimai Settlers Social Committee. My family has a long-standing association with the local Kaimai school extending to the 4th generation. Together with my husband, I farm deer and sheep on Old Kaimai Road, are involved in the forestry industry with a couple of log harvesting crews, so we can help Te Puna out if you want us to. And I also manage Marshall's Animal Park on behalf of my husband's family. It was recently brought to my attention that the council was reviewing the reserves management plan, so I thought I would look at the reserves in my local area, being Omanua Lower Kaimai reserves. A couple of things stood out for me. One was the large area of red being the Onga Onga Scenic Reserve, and 2, how hopeless some of our reserves are. I'm focusing on 2 of the reserves in particular, the Onga Onga Scenic Reserve and the Lower Kaimai Hall Site Reserve. After reading the sentence on page 13 of your draft plan about the Omanua and Lower Kaimai communities, the part where it said the Onga Onga Scenic Reserve has walking tracks through native bush, perfect for hiking and bird watching, well, that caught my eye as I enjoy bushwalking, and I had no idea this reserve was so big and was wondering why I hadn't ever gone there before for a walk on these tracks. So I decided to check it out. Our Onga Onga Reserve, which is a decent size of around 122 acres, is the closest virgin native bush to Tauranga
and runs northwest off the edge of State Highway 29, with a strong flowing Te Ahura stream running along its southern boundary. Unfortunately, access to this reserve is very challenging. I don't know if any of you have ever tried to have a stroll through this virgin bush, but it requires you to be relatively fit to get in there. You must either sprint across the bridge in the gap in the busy traffic on State Highway 29 or swim across the river. The only areas suitable to park are either in the metal dump area across opposite Soldiers Road, which is plenty of room, or on the western side of the highway on the edge of Soldiers Road itself. Both options require you to cross the river to get into the Onga Onga Reserve. The other side of the bridge has safety barriers along the roadside up to the Ngā Mahini Road, so there is nowhere to park. Together with my husband, we parked on the edge of Soldiers Road and stood on our busy State Highway 29 and waited for a gap in the traffic, where we sprinted across the bridge, hurdled the safety barrier and scrambled down through the scrub along the river edge and into the reserve. It was about then I realised my sprinting ability wasn't what I remembered. When you finally got in there, it's lovely, very impressive. Rimu, Tawa, Rewa, Tanikaha, Miro, also saw some matai, kahikatea, totra, and a very large rata vine. The terrain was a lot flatter than I anticipated, making the walk through to Brown's boundary an easy walk. That boundary is unfenced. The bush is very open with clear signs of animals grazing on the undergrowth. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to look at the grassy area inside the reserve fence from State Highway 29 to see it's no different to the paddock that's farmed with goats beside it. There were no so-called tracks as mentioned in your community spiel. There was the occasional metal tag ingrown into the odd tree where there had been a track in the past, but these were very few and far between. There were some areas with wandering dew that were beginning to spread, which if left uncontrolled could hinder regeneration efforts. I would like to see a plan for this reserve. There are several viable options to consider for gaining access. One possible approach, and my preferred one, is constructing a suspension bridge across the Te Ahura stream. This could either start from the metal tip area, as there is ample space available, which could be further expanded by clearing away the weed piles, or from the corner, which is within the reserve and currently farmed on State Highway 29. This location would serve as an ideal spot for a car park and access point. Such a development would facilitate access for individuals of all ages to a nearby podocarp group and enhance the aesthetic appeal of the area. My alternative proposal involves modifying the boundaries along Ngā Mahini Road at Lower Kaimai Reserve. This may include exchanging areas with the farmer to facilitate and develop the development of a car park and walkway adjacent to the safety barriers on State Highway 29 in the area currently occupied by gorse. This may be feasible within the road reserve area without altering any boundaries. This arrangement would be on the Onga Onga Reserve side of the Te Ahura stream, eliminating the need for a bridge to access the reserve. However, it would not offer the aesthetic appeal of a suspension bridge and may present access challenges for certain age groups. Now, to fund this, I would like to propose selling our old Kaimai Hall site, which is the Lower Kaimai Hall site reserve. This area was once our very much larger Lower Kaimai domain and home to our Kaimai Hall. It was severed by the realignment of State Highway 29 in the late 60s, early 70s, and our community has always insisted that the Lower Kaimai Reserve was a poor exchange for our original Lower Kaimai domain. Our Kaimai Hall was moved to the school in the early 90s, so this site has sat idle for over 30 years. It is currently grazed and unsuitable as a reserve. Instead of investigating changing it from a local purpose reserve to a recreation reserve, I would suggest we just get the council to give it a title if it doesn't already have one, so we can sell it and the funds could support improvements at the Onga Onga Reserve, in particular a suspension bridge and forming a walking track to the podocarps. It has power on site and looks pretty good, a pretty good flat section as per my photo that I've sent around there. I would also like to suggest that the special area should have a stop-proof deer fence around the farm boundaries. I see under your reserve management approach, you mentioned appropriate native revegetation planting within the reserve. This would be a waste of money as it currently stands, as the current wildlife are keeping on top of any regeneration. If it had a stop-proof fence and the wandering dew was kept out, it would regenerate itself in no time. I do recall seeing a sign in the paddock saying Onga Onga Scenic Reserve, but I haven't seen it for years. I'm not sure if it's still there under the gorse or rotted away, so this also needs attention. The current representation of the Onga Onga Scenic Reserve on your council website and in the reserve management plan does not accurately reflect its actual appearance. Your website currently lists this as a dog walking area, and it may be beneficial to remove this as it is challenging to enter the area on your own without adding a dog on a lead. The proximity of this pristine bushland to Tauranga City presents significant potential for development into a valuable recreational area. A brief walk to admire the magnificent trees or a longer loop track suitable for leashed dogs would offer substantial benefits to the community. We just need to get the fence stock proof so it can regenerate, get some easy access to it and establish proper tracks like those at the Pukitoki Reserve. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Marshall. Interesting idea, similar to the one we've heard just earlier on. I'll go to the question. I think Don, Councillor Thwaites has one. I'll let him start.
Morning, Debbie. Good to see you again. Hey, I had to speak because Councillor Murray Benge isn't here, and she would talk about her passion for the road realignment and safe access to those roads. But I know the gas pipeline runs through there as well, and that also confounded NZTA's plans for what they were going to do. So my long-winded question is, we need something long-term if we're going to develop car parks and that for access to that. So I guess we need to talk to NZTA if they have any plans for improvements in that area.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I've heard
Yeah.
plans for realigning that bridge for hundreds of years. So another 100, they might do something.
Fair enough.
But that won't affect what I'm proposing.
Yeah.
Like
But
that.
that seems the safest point to come along from Namohini area.
That would be the cheapest way.
Yeah, yeah,
But it wouldn't be very pretty, and you'd have to go through some of Garnet's land, I'm presuming.
yeah. Could be made pretty.
It looked beautiful with a suspension bridge across from where the corner of the reserve.
If you natives would supplant the gorse, yeah, it would be great. Thank you.
I've just built a suspension bridge, so things I think there's definitely possible.
And I'm funding it too, just got to sell that other site.
Yeah.
It looks beautiful.
One question I had for you was that some of the improvements you want to make would possibly best be done by a care group.
Yeah.
Whether it's as predator control or weed
Yeah.
control and things like that.
They just need to be able to get in there.
So is there a do you sense that a desire from the community to form a care group, or is there the
Well, I haven't
keenness?
put it out there yet, but I'm sure there'd be people that'd be keen to do pest control and things. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Deputy Mayor Scrimgeour.
Yeah, thank you, Debbie. A similar question to what I asked Barry earlier about priorities. I'm sensing from you that one of the highest priorities for you is a fence around the boundary to keep animals out.
Yeah, well, that is quite a significant priority because the deer and goats are in there.
Yeah.
And it's, yeah.
So that's fundamental
But you need to- yeah.
making improvements to the
Yeah.
reserve. Is that what I'm hearing?
To be honest, I never went up on the Garnet side of the boundary because I was short of time and I'd used a couple of hours in there and had to go to another engagement, and I'm too scared to run across the bridge again because I realised I wasn't fit as I thought I was. So yeah, I haven't sussed that boundary out, but I can tell from the goats and things in
Yeah.
there that it's not stock proof.
Okay, thank you for that.
Okay, I think that's all the questions. So thank you again, and
you.
great suggestion, and appreciate your time. Thank you. Next up, we have Mr. Robert Mitford Burgess. In your own time, Mr. Mitford Burgess, please go ahead.
Thank you for the the opportunity to speak. Excuse me. I live right on the Precious Reserve in Amakarawa, and I've been here for 8 years. And my concern is about the proposed development of that reserve. I've just handed out to you a sheet that probably gives you a fair indication of the parts of the reserve that I'm going to be referring to. In my submission, did you receive the photographs in the submission that I sent through, or did you just receive the?
We have got the photographs.
You've got
Thank
the
you.
photographs, but so I don't need to revisit that. I'm just going to speak a little bit about the process. The obvious concern and why we got involved in this is because last year we noticed a contractor setting out an area or marking out an area of land on the reserve. And my wife went and spoke to him. He said he's setting out an area where a toilet is going to be placed, a public toilet. That was the first we knew about it. So if we go to the 2017 Reserve Concept Plan, which we subsequently looked at, there was an indication there was going to be a service vehicle access to the pump station. There was going to be parking at the end of Hamarana Road. There would be an investigation of a toilet and the investigation of all year-round passive recreation. I don't know what that passive recreation is or what it means, or what's expected for that.
Well, maybe Peter can explain a little bit more, but it's basically it's not a sports field or something like that.
Yep. Okay. Right, 2018 Reserve Plan, proposed future development, car park on the reserve. So the car park has gone from the end of Hamarana Road to the reserve. Vehicle access from Hamarana Road. So a road has been proposed to be put in from the end of Hamarana Road right around to where the car park would be, which would be down near the pump station, and a toilet block beside the pump station. So that was the 2018 Reserve Concept Plan. When the toilet was set out, it was set out in the middle of the reserve. And on the plan that I've just given to you, you can see that red dot there, which is an existing seat, and the toilet was put next to that. I wonder how the decisions are being made as to where the location of that toilet facility was going to be. I understand that there should be consultation with affected parties, and as a resident in that area, I'm one of the affected parties, and the people who use that reserve. That reserve, having lived there for 8 years, that reserve is used by walkers, by dog walkers, by young kids, by elderly people from the rest home, runners, joggers, all sorts of people use that area. And we think it should remain as an area for mainly pedestrians, for people who actively want to walk through that whole area. On my plan there, you can see that from the end of Hamarana Road, okay, there is a wetland area that's just been recently planted. It's fairly overgrown, not well maintained. Now, from there, the proposal is to put a car park, a road from there around to where the pump station is, or where the parking area is going to be. That is, when you look at the area, it would be very expensive and probably not possible. So I'm wondering if this 2018 plan is actually going to be activated, and if it is, when are the locals, or when are the local community going to be consulted about whether they need it or whether they want it, whether it's possible to put it in there. But again, I come to the process. We're not being communicated to. We're not being consulted about what is going to happen there, because it's a predominantly green space that we want to keep and used by a lot of our residents. Surely it would be a better idea to make it an area that those people can use effectively. Lots of young children, lots of elderly walkers, and you can see on the gravel walking path there, which in my photograph it shows that it's not really well formed. Perhaps it would be a good idea to turn that gravel walkway into a properly formed path, similar to the one that's going around the front of the golf course along the waterfront there. And it would be quite dangerous to share it with traffic. If you're going to put a road in around there or make that into a road for traffic to go down to a parking area there, we've witnessed some vehicles coming in there, they shouldn't be coming in there, some vehicles coming in there, and it's created a problem with the people on the path, particularly young children, mothers pushing their children in strollers, etc. It's not probably an area that should be compatible with vehicles. So my suggestion is, or my recommendation is, to keep it as a walking path, form it properly, so it continues on around the waterfront where a lot of the people walk. As far as the consultation is concerned, and our petition that you probably are aware of, we sat at that reserve there one morning on a Saturday morning, spoke to 36 people, random people, about what they wanted there. We got a pretty good indication that they wanted to keep it as a public walkway, as a pathway. And when we spoke to them about the toilet, none of them knew about the proposal to put a toilet there. And in fact, they rejected that considerably. When the toilet was going to be built, it would have been built by now if we hadn't stopped it, or we hadn't started the petition and the objection to it. We had 376 people sign the petition saying they did not want the toilet in the middle of the reserve next to that memorial seat. In fact, they wanted the toilet where it shows on the diagram, down by the beach. Why did they want it there? Because when parents are there with their children and they want their children to go and use the toilet, if they had sent them to a toilet up by that memorial seat, they would have been out of sight. Quite dangerous. So they said, if you're going to put a toilet here, in fact, they said, we don't really need a toilet here. That was the majority of the responses from those 376 people. We don't want a toilet here. We don't know why you want one there. But if you put one there, then put it in a place where it's going to be useful, which is down by the beach. That beach is probably about 300 to 400 metres long. And you can't see the right-hand top of the picture there where that yellow line goes. People go right down there to use that beach. They're not going to send their children 200, 300, 400 metres back to use a toilet where they can't see them. So that was the recommendation that they made if in fact a toilet was going to be placed there. I'm more concerned about the lack of consultation with our community. That reserve is one of the few areas left in Aotearoa that is green. 2 parts to it, 1 part by the beach, 1 part up closer to the residential area, right next to the golf course. We would like to keep it as a green space. We don't see the need to turn it into some sort of area that's going to attract a whole lot of people. Why would you need to do that? The tide, the water, it's only in for about 3 hours a day. And that's about the usage of the swimming beach, 3 hours a day. The rest of the time it's mudflats, 500 metres of mudflats. It's very different to the beach down by the main part of Aotearoa by the boat club, where you can swim most of the time. Here you can't. So there's not a big draw card there for people to come there to use as a swimming beach. So we're just asking that strongly consider leaving it as it is, a genuine, green, useful space. Kids play cricket on the reserve there. They do all sorts of things. It's a family area. And we certainly don't need a toilet stuck right in the middle of that reserve. If you wanted to place a toilet somewhere where you're going to really annoy people, that would be the best place to put it. It shouldn't be there, but it should be used. And please keep the reserve as a family recreation area. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mitford Burgess. Any questions? Councillor Coxon.
Thank you, Rob. As you know, I was at the meeting that day. You may not have the answer to this, and I can probably get this from Peter later either, but as well, rather. So the parking area at Hamarana Road, was that ever considered as a site for the toilet facilities around there somewhere? Do you know?
Sorry, I didn't quite get that.
The Hamarana Road parking area, was it ever considered to have a place, a toilet in that area?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Okay.
I think that's best to deal with from staff actually later.
I realised I just wasn't sure if it had been tabled or not.
Okay. Councillor Daly?
Rob, just in terms of the toilet, in your 370 person submission or petition, people weren't against having a toilet, full stop. They just didn't like the location. Like, how many people actually did like the idea of a toilet in the vicinity, but just didn't like it next to that memorial seat?
Sorry, sorry, I didn't quite catch all of that.
How many people that signed your petition agreed that a toilet would be a good idea, but just didn't agree on the location?
The majority of the people absolutely rejected the location that it was in, at the proposed location. And again, I would have to say the majority of the people, if you read the comments on the petition, the majority of people didn't see a need for a toilet at all. And in fact, if there was a toilet, because we asked them these questions, if there was a toilet, where would you want it to be? And there was no doubt it had to be down near the beach.
So how many people?
Councillor, I think we've covered the toilet in a, when the petition came, and I think that was probably the appropriate time to delve into that aspect of it. And the petition is about signing your name to a proposal, not to give nuanced comments. I think it's
Well, I was
unfair
just trying to get an idea of if someone gave an alternative location, then that indicated that maybe they.
The alternative location was down by the beach. That's all they said, down by the beach. And that was purely for the benefit of families with children. Yep. The walkway that's shown there, it doesn't just come around and up onto Hamarana Road there, or up to Anderley Ave, which is near the villages, but it goes right along the front of those of you who probably haven't been there, it goes right along the beach and actually goes up into the main part of Omokara Peninsula there. So that walkway goes right along the beach. So it's an active area.
Okay, any further questions for Mr. Mitford Burgess? No? Okay, well, thank you for your time. I appreciate you coming in again and talking to us.
Appreciate the opportunity to speak.
Thank you. Okay, next up we have Mr. Sean Gardner from Bowentown Beach Holiday Park.
Kia ora koutou. My name is Sean Gardner. I am an intermediate planner at Inspire Consulting Limited. I am speaking on behalf of Michael and Rebecca Crosby of Waihi Beach. Mike and Rebecca operate the Bowentown Beach Holiday Park. The Holiday Park is a fixture in the community and has been providing recreational opportunities for both locals and visitors for a very long time. Mike and Rebecca are in their mid-30s, making them relatively young for holiday park owners, and so they are invested in seeing the holiday park industry thrive now and into the future. The holiday industry has evolved significantly since the reserve management plan policies were last updated. While some people still want traditional campsites, there's a growing demand for amenities such as kids clubs, playgrounds, spas, Wi-Fi, and coffee shops. Mike and Rebecca want to provide a quintessential Kiwi-owned and operated holiday experience while giving holiday goers access to some of the amenities that they've come to expect. We've proposed some common sense amendments to policies 4 and 5 of the Reserves Management Plan that would acknowledge that some commercial activities, when managed properly, can enhance a recreation purpose. We suggest retaining the requirement that commercial activities on reserve land obtain a formal concession or lease, but propose that existing activities that enhance a recreation purpose have a simplified approvals process for minor changes or upgrades. We believe the changes that we have proposed will allow the operators of recreational services, such as holiday parks, to have the flexibility to keep up with the industry and continue to provide benefit to locals and visitors while maintaining the recreation purpose of reserves. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak to our submission. I welcome any questions from councillors.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions for you there? I think maybe just a comment. I know that this sort of issue has come up in the past. I think with I look at Rachel here for the Y Beach tennis club as well, about the nature of having a commercial element to a lease in a reserve. So I think it's something that's at least on our radar. And I appreciate you speaking on behalf of the owners to bring us another example. Did you want to speak to that?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair, just to clarify that is a piece of work that we're advancing right now, in fact. So we expect to be bringing it to our council shortly.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. So perhaps if this example can certainly be included in that as what kind of things are perhaps anticipated in that piece of work. So appreciate you coming, and thank you very much for presenting on behalf of your clients.
Thank you so much.
So, thank you. Okay, we have our last submitter now, which is Margie Sorensen and David Rolfe. I think maybe a few other people as well. So perhaps you could introduce yourself.
Good morning. I'm Margie Sorensen, and I'm a member of the board of the Mokoroa Bowling Club. But with me, I have David Rolfe and Gary Newson and Graham Needs, who I may refer some of your questions to because they know more about parts of our submission. So thank you for the opportunity to share our thoughts and indeed our wants and needs. I'll address our current situation regarding our site at Hamarana Road Reserve, our playing membership and the issues that are arising for them at the moment, as well as the community that use our club rooms, and also the possibilities that exist for us at Western Road Reserve Sports Complex in the Kaimai Reserves Management Plan. So we're fortunate now to have a current council lease due to expire in 9 years' time. As identified in your current plan, the land we're on is subject to coastal erosion and subsidence. And in fact, the rear of our club room at the moment is just 400 millimetres from the cliff face, which is pretty scary. We have two really well-maintained greens, one a natural grass green, which is recognised as one of the best in the Western Bay of Plenty, and a carpet green, which is just 4 years old, but has a lifetime which will extend for about 9 more years, coincidentally the same time as our lease runs out. We didn't plan that. We have around 100 full playing members, several social members, and very many more casual players when we open up the greens to events to the local community to come and try, and also corporate events. So many people are playing bowls. The Mokoroa Club hosts regular midweek tournaments attended by the wider Bay of Plenty bowling community, and our own members attend roll-ups and practice sessions throughout the week and during the weekends. We're also currently being considered for some national events. Most problematic for us, apart from the erosion, is access. Access to our greens is by a steep roadway, and our adjacent parking is also on a sloping area. So this situation precludes access to play for those with limited mobility, as you can well imagine. And many of our lawn bowlers are in that situation. A lawn bowl's bag is like a carry-on bag, an airline carry-on bag, but it's jolly heavy with your four bowls and the paraphernalia that you carry with you to a game. So lifting, for some of our older members, lifting those out of your car on a sloping site has its own challenges. Let's just have a look at who our players are. We have a mix of regular social bowlers, and then we have some very highly competitive ones as well. And we're very proud that one of us is a member of the Blackjacks International squad. Others are current holders of regional and national titles. So we work hard to get our bowlers up to a really good level. We're pretty proud of that. The age demographic is traditionally pre and post-retirement, where the sport offers anaerobic activity and engagement in social and community events. So both mental and physical benefits. Interestingly, in a game of singles, a player will walk around 6,000 steps, do 80 lunges, for goodness sake, when they're delivering their bowls, and more than 80 bicep curls when you're picking up your bowls. So we get plenty of exercise. We also host a variety of small community groups. For example, the Floral Society, Mahjong, card players, and access for some of these people can also be problematic. There's a growing trend nationally and internationally for younger players taking up the sport. So the concept you might have at the moment of lawn bowlers being old and out there is not necessarily correct. For us, proximity and exposure to a wider group of sports people will enhance this aspect of the game and add a new dimension to our club. We also run Give It a Go Fridays during the summer for the local community to come and try out the game. And this is delivering to us a group of much younger players. We're really happy where we are. We are regularly congratulated on the quality of our greens, the glorious outlook, and the well-maintained environment that our volunteers deliver. Our volunteers look after all of our grounds. We are, however, very pragmatic and know that we must plan for the conclusion of our lease, but more importantly, the climatic changes that are likely to force our hand in terms of relocation much earlier than anticipated. So this submission now for us, success for this in this submission, will be to find a future home so that we can plan in a meaningful way. A home for us will be on a flat, well-drained site to facilitate development of 2 new greens. A site in a weather-protected, sheltered position, because in spite of those odd bowls being heavy, they are really subject to wind. And on occasion, you'll see as you deliver a bowl, which does an arc like so, do an S-bend on its way to the kitty, you hope. And as I spoke before, an area where our sport can be exposed to a wider group of sports people. We believe that an area in the Western Avenue Sports Complex would be ideal for us, particularly as it's between 2 retirement villages, level area so that they can access their sport by foot. And we would be very grateful for your consideration into granting us space at Western Road, the sports complex within the Kaimai Reserves plan. So, questions?
Thank you. I see Councillor Granger.
Hi, thanks, Pat. And I did enjoy my trip down to the bowls on one of your have a go sessions.
Great.
But
you didn't come back though.
No, I didn't. Council keeps me far too busy to go playing bowls. My question is the committee aware that a bowling green has been tentatively placed into the active reserves that council will develop in about 9-10 years' time down by Prole Road, so that the concept plan does show a bowling green in that area as a potential use of that land.
Yes, and we have been aware of that, and we have looked at that site and looked at the Western Road site. Western Road is better for us in terms of shelter from the weather. Prole Road is more likely, we believe, to be subject to wind, which affects bowls markedly. And the site below the tennis courts at Western Ave would be ideal for us because it is sheltered and it's more or less the right size.
Yes, but that is heavily used by the athletics and soccer team people at the moment. So I'm not quite sure where you're going to fit in down there without throwing somebody else out.
Oh, I beg my pardon. We understood that soccer and football were moving down to Prole Road.
So you're saying this is your request is for 9 years' time, not in the immediate. All right. Okay. Appreciate it.
Yes. Can I ask David to respond?
Councillors and officers, just like to give a bit of information about the fact that we have been identified as a club to move to Prole Road. That was done without any consultation with us, formal consultation. It was a phone call that I received from a senior council officer and said, look, we're putting together the 10-year plan. We need to look at the Prole Road development for sports. And because of that, funding comes into that and we'll put you there. But it doesn't mean to say that that would be your definite site.
So it sounds like options are open at this point, and the Prole Road site gives us options, but your preference is the Western Avenue.
That's correct.
Okay, Councillor Thwaites.
Yeah, congratulations, team, on your 9-year vision. It's good to get right at the start. From what I see on TV and that, I see a future concept is even covered. You've talked about your artificial turf and even a roof over it where you could go and play in the pouring rain. I see not even Mount Maunganui and the United Greens have got that far yet, but I just wonder if do you have any thoughts on that and whether a roofed area might be able to be hidden more down at Prole rather than, or it's not a big deal, but I just thought I'd throw in a wild card for you.
Do you know, every bowling club would love a covered green. Covered greens aren't cheap. They are really expensive. At the moment, and done by grants and funding largely, but at the moment, yes, we'd love that. But it's not in our vision. Our vision is we desperately need a new home. That's
I only raise it. I have played tennis in torrential rain at the Omokoroa Number School Arch there, and it's an unreal feeling to play tennis in absolute
Yes,
torrential rain. It was magnificent. Yeah, just extend your usage right through, and even lighting, and extend into the evenings.
Thank you, Councillor Thwaites. I'm sorry.
We have the feeling that because funding for such structures is relatively limited, and that Karikat and Matua are both looking at similar things, that because we're in the middle of them, we may not be as successful in grants as we might otherwise.
I thought you were suggesting Matua and Karikat merged to Omokoroa and you United Greens at Omokoroa in the middle.
Karikat had some lovely greens.
Okay, Councillor Sol.
Thank you, sir. Largely my questions were asked by my fellow councillor over there, but I do sort of still look at this, and there are a couple of things that really stand out to me that are quite important to me. And one of them is your recognition of the issues you have with those with various disabilities, and parking and access, etc., and also your concern about potentially an issue with erosion and so on. I also look at this and I wonder, with the development and growth, 9 years is still quite a long time, and there will be quite a large amount of growth there and more potential members, and I would just say potential, you know what it's like to get your members and where they come from, et cetera, better than me. So my question really is, on top of the others there was more, how prepared are you to move earlier if need be? If things go a bit sour or you wind up or hitting this major capacity issue, and you can start negotiating with council about another site, how quickly could you move? How can you fund it? How do you see that happening?
We don't have a lot of funding at all. All we have is a fund that we put money aside for our green replacement every 12 years, 13 years. So depends on the timeline, of course. If there was some subsidence and we had to move, it would mean that we would be able to play on one green only. We would be able to use our carpet green in the interim. So club activities could be maintained whilst we developed a new site.
Councillor Daly. Sure, Councillor Coxhead.
It's not often that happens, is it? Thank you for your engaging presentation, Margie. It was great. Made it bowling quite exciting for me. Just a question around, and you rightly pointed out what a magnificent site it is. Every time I drive past there, it gives me a little flashback to my Wellington days as a child, not a small child, for some reason. I don't know why. But anyway, I'll give up on my own history and get on with the question. The area that you're looking to move from, what would you suggest would be good use of that area going forward for perhaps another club, not obviously wanting to hang over the side of the cliff or anything? Just that someone suggested this morning that there might be an interest in a croquet club or something along those lines, but it was a bit spitbally, to be honest. But just wondering if that would be a suitable activity there.
I was listening to the croquet presentation actually, and yes, it would suit croquet because they need much smaller space for their working area, for their playing area, and also pétanque. To have croquet and pétanque greens together would make a lot of sense. Similar type sports again. The club rooms would need to be moved up toward the road still. Yes.
Councillors' offices. If we were to move out from that area, there would be enormous opportunities to develop the whole area down there. At the moment, there is a boat launching area or a swimming. There's a jetty in which swimmers quite often use, but it could be developed into a small boat launching area. We know that the launching area in Amakoroa now is very, very busy. There's a lot of canoeists and small boats that could be launched from that particular area. You could develop a car parking for those boats and trailers there. I mean, it's just an idea of what you're plucking out, but it could be developed, in a completely different way. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of other good ideas because it's a beautiful site. It's special actually, but it's just a little bit isolated, and at the moment, it's got difficult access.
Thank you. And Councillor Daly.
Yeah, I guess my question was, is a bowling green not compatible with croquet? Does croquet damage the green or?
Oh, definitely, yes. A bowling green, the green itself, is around 36 metres by 36 metres, which is much bigger, but it is pristine, absolutely pristine. It's like a golf green, putting green. Yes, and if it's not perfect, you can't play on it.
Okay. And looking at the overhead of the plan of the bowling green, looks like you've got 2 greens, obviously, but do you have like 8? Can you have 8 games going at any one time?
Eight games on each green, that's correct.
On each green,
Yeah. And up to 8 players on each rink, depending on which format of the game you're playing, whether it's singles or fours or triples or pairs.
Would you just want that replicated, or would you want a bigger facility, or is
No,
that sufficient
no.
size?
That the size of that area is just perfect for us. We have 2 greens. We have room enough around the greens for players to sit, for spectators to sit. There's greenery around it. It's made to look really attractive, and we've got room for our clubhouse. It's just perfect, and parking. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I don't see any more questions. So I want to thank you again for coming in and sharing your submission with us. And it's been great to have you. So thank you very much, and good luck. Yeah.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. So we have 2 recommendations. Firstly, to receive the report, and secondly, to receive the written and verbal submissions for the Kaimai Reserve Management Plan. So I'm looking for a mover and second. I see Councillor Thwaites, seconded Councillor Granger. I assume there's no debate on this. So I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried.